Sunlight pouring through the aspens. What could be more incredibly joyful than to see light flickering in the golden leaves on an autumn day? Hi everyone, I'm Thomas Kinkade, and it excites me to stand in a beautiful grove of aspen trees and watch the sunlight flickering. It's as though there are little droplets of God's love just pouring through the trees. My new painting is Aspen Chapel. When I started painting my Chapels of Nature series, I was really intrigued with the idea of places of worship located in natural settings. Now, the first painting in that collection was, of course, Mountain Chapel, and this painting featured the dramatic view of mountains rising up to snow-capped heights, and in the midst of all the majesty of those mountains, the humble stone church sat quietly at the base of the mountain. My second piece in the collection was, of course, Forest Chapel. Forest Chapel was not only a departure for me stylistically, in the sense that I created more of a sense of morning mist and less of the drama of the mountain heights, but it was also a very intimate view versus the grand view of the mountainside that we saw in the Mountain Chapel. Forest Chapel featured stained glass windows, one of the few times I have ever painted that effect for publication. The third painting in my Chapels of Nature collection was Streams of Living Water, and what a pastoral, tranquil setting that is. The idea that beside the cool waters of a stream, we take time to worship God. A marvelous sentiment and one of my favorite subjects because I love sitting by quiet waters. With Aspen Chapel, I have attempted to break into new territory again because this painting really captures, I think, the best that nature has to offer. It was fun working on Aspen Chapel because so many details seem to call for my attention. On the one hand, we have the small herd of grazing cattle in the field. The stones of the field make up the fencing that surrounds the various areas on the hillside. And of course, the stones themselves come from the stream, which meanders through the sylvan wilderness. At the base of the aspen trees, we have a small group of field rabbits that are gathered quietly in the shade of the aspen. The little patches of sunlight suggest, again, the flickering quality of light as it pours through the leaves of the shaking aspen. The split rail fence leads you serenely up to the church itself. And what a place to worship. Flowers are growing in wild abundance all around its base. And in the distance, we see the forest lands, as though the chapel was nestled in the midst of the abundant, growing forest itself. Above, we see the clouds breaking up into billowy clusters. God's golden radiance flows over the clouds themselves. Of course, a few chipmunks frolic in the trees. What would a forest be without the chattering of chipmunks? As I look at the cross on the top of the steeple of this serene little country church, I'm reminded that from a distance you would see that steeple. You would see that cross, almost like a beacon of light in the midst of darkness. The shrouds of forest foliage seem to part, and there is the church standing resolutely in the midst of the forest. One thing about a church in the countryside, you stumble upon a structure and you say, imagine how difficult it would be to build this in this remote setting. With Aspen Chapel, you get the sense that the very stones that it was built on were gathered from the fields and from the stream beds, and perhaps the planks that make up its siding were carved from trees felled in the midst of the forest. So truly, it's as though the chapel were at one with nature. Well, I must say it sure does an artist's heart good to see a project come together that he has dreamed about for so long. I think ever since I wandered through that grove of aspen trees, I've been intrigued with the idea of the color that comes as sunlight pours through those golden leaves. It's as though the entire scene is just bathed in a golden radiance. And that's the effect I tried to capture in this painting. This particular work, of all my recent paintings, will benefit beautifully from dimming the light and bringing that light down to a low level, it will cause the colors to glow exceptionally. And it's because of the luminous tones of the aspen trees themselves. And it reminds me that a painting can and does act as a point of contact in people's lives, imparting a little hope and a little beauty and a little peace, things that we all desperately need. God bless you as you share the light.